This is the first in a series of videos in which we're going to discuss the concept of document packages in HotDocs. And this video is going to be primarily an overview of that concept or that idea. So you can see I have HotDocs Developer on my system, and I've got a simple library with three different items that of course point to three different templates. This is obviously a simplified estate planning library. Now, if I wanted to assemble a document from one or more of the templates referenced here, I could do that easily enough by selecting, say, just the trust template and clicking on assemble, or otherwise initiating an assembly, and then I'll get an interview for that trust, and then presumably at the end of that process I'll get an assembled document. If I wanted to assemble more than one template in sequence, I could simply hold down my control key and highlight multiple templates here in the library. Again, initiate an assemble process. But then I'm typically going to go through each of the interviews associated with those templates in sequence. So in this situation, I'd go through the trust interview first, the will interview, followed by the financial power of attorney. Now, that might work well enough if I have just a handful of templates from which I want to assemble a handful of documents. And going through each of the interviews is probably not going to be terribly burdensome, but I'm likely to see, because a lot of the same information goes into multiple documents in this kind of situation, the same questions coming up in these respective interviews, and I might see the same dialogues more than once in that sequence. And if I have several other templates, obviously I don't have several other templates here in this library, but if I wanted to assemble 7, 10, 15 different documents in a sequence, and I had to go through an interview for each one of those documents, that could be rather cumbersome. So the idea behind a document package is that we consolidate the interview process so that we get just one interview, but coming out of that interview, we get multiple assembled documents. And let me show you what I mean by that. I've got in my library here an item that says estate planning document package. We're going to start at the end, and then of course work our way forward. So I want to show you the finished product here. I've got this estate planning document package item in my library. And you can see actually it's just a component file, but it has an interview associated with it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the assemble button here to start that interview process. Of course, I'm asked if I want to use an answer file. I'm just going to start from scratch here and click on OK. You'll see that the first item or dialog in the library is simply a multiple choice question asking which documents I want to assemble. I can select one or more of the available documents here simply by checking a box. Notice as soon as I check the trust box, I get a number of different dialogues in the interview outline. If I click on will or check the will box, I get even more items or dialogues in the interview outline. And finally, if I check durable power of attorney here, I get a few other dialogues. And then of course, my task is to go through all of these dialogues in sequence. So you'll notice as I check or uncheck boxes here in this initial document selection screen, the interview outline is modified accordingly. So I will be seeing different dialogues over here depending on which documents I select. Now I want to show you the assembly queue. Let me go ahead and clean this up a little bit. Right now, with three documents selected, I am seeing in the assembly queue three different documents that are about to be assembled. So that's the idea behind a document package. Again, I'm going through one interview, but depending on which documents I select here in this initial dialog, I'll get a corresponding number of documents to assemble. So notice with the assembly queue still visible here, if I uncheck or check boxes, the documents in the queue will change. So right now, because I've selected all three of these documents, I'm seeing all three of these documents here in the assembly queue waiting to be assembled. Of course, I still need to go through the rest of the interview. Now I'm going to take a little bit of a shortcut here just for demonstration purposes. we've created a little script link dialogue element that's just going to fill the rest of these questions in these dialogues with dummy data just to move this process along. So this is obviously not a normal part of a HotDocs interview, but I'm just going to go ahead and click on it to populate all of these fields here to simulate going through the interview process, just so you don't have to see me go through all of that and all of these dialogues one by one. So as indicated by these solid blue icons next to each dialogue in the interview outline, I've got all the questions answered. So if I want to finish this process now, I simply click on Finish Interview. I'm going to be asked if I want to save my answers. Of course, if I wanted to save, I'd click on Save at this point. Again, to keep things moving along here, I'm not going to do that. I'll just click on Don't Save. But now, what I'm going to see is the automatic assembly of 3 different documents: the trust, the will, and the financial power of attorney. The way this has been set up, they all come up in Word. They're not named documents. I still need to go ahead and save them, or if perhaps I'm using a document management system, I'll need to save and profile the documents at this point. But notice that I went through one interview, and coming out of that process, I got 3 different documents. So that's the idea behind a document package. We don't have to go through separate interviews for the different documents that we may want to assemble. We consolidate all of the interview functionality into a single HotDocs interview, and then coming out of that, we get however many documents we select. As we go through the other documents in this, or the other videos in this series, we're going to look at all of the steps necessary to put together a document package.